It's hour 2 of the Vintage Rock and Pop Shop, and our guest this hour of the show is Bob Leszczak. He's a broadcaster, a fellow broadcaster, but also the author of a relatively new book called Single-Season Sitcoms, 1948 to 1979. Welcome to the show.
Hey, it's good to be here.
Yeah, this is somewhat of an unusual path to take as someone researching television, and almost a Herculean effort, I would imagine, because there's just so many single-season sitcoms.
Well, between 1948, the criteria, 48 to 79, there were almost 300 of them. And being from the early days of television, it's kind of tough because a lot of the shows don't exist. They were done live and never seen again.
So in a situation like that, what do you go by? Just what was printed in newspapers or magazines at the time?
Well, you know, it's always frustrated me that some of these shows, there's like one paragraph and all of these great books that have been done over the years, but such a paucity of information. So I sought out a lot of the people, the cast, people behind the scenes from these shows, and it was through them that I got some information that had never been out there before. For example, a show called It's a Business, which was a live show on the long-defunct Dumont television network.
Right.
And I got one of the original cast members, Leo DeLion, who was also a cartoon voice on the Top Cat series, and he had a whole bunch of stuff to add. He even had a picture of the Dumont camera and him there on the set, and things that have never been published before about that show. There was another one called Menashe the Magnificent. I found the guy's son, and the star of the show is no longer with us, but his son knew a lot about it, and through him I got a lot of information as well. So it was through that avenue, and also seeking out some old kinescopes at places like UCLA and the Paley Center in both New York and Los Angeles, which used to be known as the Museum of Radio and Television.
Right.
And through those avenues, I gathered and garnered quite a bit of information.
And I think people probably have a misconception about single-season sitcoms that they're almost uniformly bad, but that's not the case with these shows.
In some it was. There's some very bad shows. The Baileys of Balboa from the middle 60s was a very bad show, in my opinion. Somebody out there may love it. Accidental Family with Jerry Van Dyke was a very bad show. But a lot of these shows, they didn't have the savvy. The networks didn't have the savvy to, put them on after the Super Bowl back then to garner an audience, to get people interested in a brand new show, something brand new to the network. They would just plop it on, sometimes 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, 7:30, against some juggernaut that had been on for many, many seasons and expected to catch on. And it just didn't, no matter how good the show is. And there are several examples in my book of some great shows that should have lasted for several seasons and didn't. So a lot of great shows went unnoticed.
And a lot of great shows with big stars in them.
A lot of people tried, a lot of movie stars tried to make the travel over to television and just didn't make it. Mickey Rooney, a great example. There are so many others. Jean Arthur from the movies. They forced her out of retirement. They urged her and enticed her with a lot of money. Said, "Come out of retirement. We have a great show for you." And it lasted 12 weeks. So star power didn't always work.
And some of these shows have, over time, become somewhat legendary, and some of them have even wound up on DVD, like My Living Doll with Julie Newmar.
That's an interesting one because a lot of the tapes, a lot of the original films are lost. They only have 11 of the, I guess there were like 32 episodes of the show. Somewhere along the line, well, I know that Jack Chertok was he was the guy who did the show. He put the show together. He produced the show. He's also the guy who gave us My Favorite Martian. And he was so disappointed that the show didn't really catch on that allegedly he destroyed some of the tapes, some of the films. So there are only 11 that are known to exist, and Julie Newmar and some other people are searching the entire world for some other copies, and they're just not coming up with them.
And it's a wonderful show. You know, that DVD proves that there was something there, and that's a situation, I think, where the show itself kind of fell apart.
Well, it fell apart because of its stars. There was quite a bit of a rift between Julie Newmar and Bob Cummings, and in fact, Bob was let go near the end of the show, so the whole dynamic of the show changed. Suddenly it was the Jack Mulaney character who was controlling and living with My Living Doll, and so they had to change the intro of the show. And strangely, none of those episodes exist. None of the ones after Bob Cummings was let go, none of those are known to be anywhere. So that's a big mystery to a lot of people.
Another show that wound up on DVD fairly recently is I'm Dickens, He's Fenster.
Half the season is out. There's another half coming, and that is one of my favorites. I'm glad you brought that one up. That is a great show with a lot of great chemistry and great slapstick, and the two stars were just brilliant. Should have been a show that lasted 4, 5, 6 seasons and was buried on Fridays on ABC, and ABC wasn't the most popular network at that time. And they had a lot of good programming, just they were always third in the ratings, maybe fourth at some point, sometimes against Dumont back in the 1950s. And they were struggling, and the poor show lasted only one season. It's had a life in syndication, but it should have been on for a much longer time. Very funny show. If you haven't seen it, you should pick up that DVD set with more episodes coming.
I have to ask you about syndication because normally if a show's only on for one season, it vanishes and it's gone. But shows like the aforementioned I'm Dickens, He's Fenster, also Gidget, last into syndication. Why is that?
Nobody realizes that Gidget was only on for one season.
Yeah.
Sally Field show. And it pops up because it just so encompasses summertime, Southern California, the 1960s, surfing, and a lot of fun that people don't realize there were only 32 episodes of the show. So it does get picked up pretty often. I think it was on Antenna TV or Hot TV, one of those cable channels most recently, and they ran through all 32 episodes. And people think because the movies were successful and the later new Gidget was a little more successful, it was on for 2 seasons, that the show was on forever. But no, it just lasted that one season, but lives on truly an anomaly because it does live on with that one season.
Do you have a favorite among them?
Well, we mentioned I'm Dickens, He's Fenster earlier. I loved growing up Mr. Terrific, and I still like it today. All the episodes were put out on a foreign. The show is huge in Germany and in different European countries, and they put it out in the PAL format, and I was able to get one and watch it over here in the States with a little help from somebody who transferred it to regular DVD, NTSC format for me. And it still holds up for me. I loved the show as a kid, and it brings back happy memories, and it still works for me. Another show is Angel from Desilu Studios with Annie Fargé and Marshall Thompson, who would later be in Doctari. The only reason that show didn't work is because the girl in the show, Annie Fargé, who played Angel, had a very thick French accent, and a lot of people had trouble understanding what she was saying. But the show was very well done and very funny and should have been around a lot longer. Those are some of my favorites, but there are others.
Don't you think, I mean, this is a sort of an idea I had a long time ago. Don't you think there should be a cable network or some kind of a TV network just devoted to single-season sitcoms?
You know, that's funny you bring that up because I've been trying to get in touch with all of the channels. There's MeTV, right, which we have here in the Palm Springs area where I live. But I don't get the other ones, but I hear they're really good. Hot TV I just mentioned, and Antenna TV, and there's one other one. TV Land was really great when they first came on. They showed a lot of the single-season shows. I remember them showing things like Bob Carroll, Ted and Alice, and Mr. Terrific, and Barefoot in the Park, and shows like that. But, you know, they have to survive. They have to be able to sell to advertisers, so they have to get ratings.
Right.
And we are a minority in that we love these shows. Most people will, go away if they show shows that are too obscure, and if they do that 24 hours a day, I think the station might really, the cable channel might really struggle.
That's also something I noticed too. A lot of these single-season sitcom shows, maybe not a lot of them, but a portion of them were based on movies. The idea being that the movie was a success. Of course, the TV version would be a success, but that didn't turn out to be the case.
So few of them have been successful. I can think of MASH off the top of my head as a movie that worked. However, there's Adam's Rib, and there's many others that lasted 13 weeks and just disappeared. They didn't have the same dynamic as the original movie. Mr. Roberts, another one from the middle 1960s, and I could go on.
Yeah, and you do in the book, which is
yes,
called...
I do. They're all listed there alphabetically.
Single-season sitcoms, 1948 to 1979. Bob Leszczak is our guest on the Vintage Rock and Pop Shop. I have to ask about a potential follow-up book, and I don't know if this is a task that you'd even want to undertake, But pilots, unsold pilots.
Well, you'll be happy to know, not me, but another writer friend of mine has just done that. That is coming soon. Be looking for that. Pilots is coming very soon. It encompasses sold and unsold pilots.
Wow.
Everyone ever done that that the guy was able to find information on is coming. His name is Vincent Terrace, and it's from the same publisher as single season sitcoms, McFarlane Publishing, and that'll be available soon.
Now, when you released the book was published. I'm curious if you heard from people who remembered these shows.
I've gotten some nice comments via email, people who've researched how to find me, which is not difficult because it says on the back he works in radio in Palm Springs.
Right.
So my name is right there on the book, so they can find me. I just got a wonderful letter from a guy in the Bronx the other day, just saying that he hasn't seen these shows in so long, but so nice to read about things like Occasional Wife and Peck's Bad Girl and some other obscurities that he hasn't seen since they first aired. And yeah, the response has been great, and it has been also great from some people who were in these shows. I interviewed so many of them, and they're all listed in the front. There's over 100 people I talked to, from the cast and directors and writers and people behind the scenes, even the people who did the music for these shows, the theme songs. And they've actually, since the interviews we did, they've become friends, and they all got the book, and they're very excited about it. And they've even, I got more Christmas cards from the people this past Christmas that I interviewed for the book than family. So they've become good friends. We keep in touch via email and Facebook, and just a wonderful experience all around, and it's nice that we're still in touch and still friends.
You know, that's a wonderful aspect about the book, because a lot of work went into these shows, a lot of hard work, and now finally some of these people are getting their due.
Yes, and they're very excited about it. Everybody that I interviewed was excited about the project, and they would say so. They would say things like, "I'm glad you're doing this. It's about time." And one guy in particular, one of the directors, Bruce Bilson, who directed so many sitcoms in the 1960s and 1970s, said, "I'm glad you're doing this now because, we're all getting older and we're not going to be here forever. So it's nice that we get to be in this book and are remembered while we're still here." So it's been a very, very fun project, and I look forward to doing more.
Well, I've got something else for people to remember, and that's how to get the book. Where do they go, online or in bookstores?
It's not necessarily in bookstores. It's mostly online, although your local bookstore can certainly order it, but you can get it through Amazon.com, you can get it through BarnesandNoble.com, and right from the publisher, too, McFarlanePub.com on the World Wide Web. Just some of the many. If you do a Google search, you'll find it in just a million different places. And I was amazed to find it in so many different countries with so many different denominations. You can buy it if you have rupees. You can buy it with rupees. If you have pounds in England, it's just in every denomination in every country.
And where can people catch up with you personally?
They can they can find me on Facebook as Bob O'Brien, which is my radio name. That's probably the best way to get in touch with me.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Bob, for coming on.
Thank you.